Hi, my name is Charisse Janelle, and you're listening to Chapter 6 of Barbara Conklin's P.S. I Love You, book number 1 of the Sweet Dreams book series by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Chapter 6. I begged my mother to allow me to stay in an upstairs bedroom. That's foolish, she told me, unpacking her clothes in one of the downstairs bedrooms. You'll spend all your time climbing up and down those endless stairs. The bedrooms on the first floor are so beautiful. I want the one with the peacocks on the walls, Kim said. There's a nice window where I can see clear out to the pool. The Abbott said we could use any of the rooms except for their bedroom in the east wing, my mother reminded us. I suppose you could take one of those other rooms up there, Mariah, but why, when there's that lovely green and white one next to mine? She had no way of knowing that I had already inspected each bedroom thoroughly. There was one with a backyard view and a window seat that I couldn't resist. Propped up against the rose-colored velvet pillows on the wide windowsill, I could watch progress on the gazebo and see some more of this Paul Strobe, too. About 1 hour later, after I'd unpacked all my clothes, showered, and changed into a fresh green shirt and white shorts, I checked my mother's room and then Kim's. Both of them had fallen asleep in the middle of their beds. I made my way to the back door. I knew Paul was still out there, with the blueprint spread in front of him, placing different sizes of wood into different stacks. Old Jim had finally left to take an afternoon nap, I guessed. I had seen it all from my perch in the window seat. I touched the back door to open it and then swung around looking for a pitcher. I'd have to bring him some water or something, I figured. Peeking into the refrigerator, I whistled when I saw how really big it was inside. I'd never seen anything like it, even in the stores. Wow, I said under my breath. It's big enough for a restaurant. There were several cartons of Coke, root beer, diet drinks, and orange juice in bottles. I grabbed 2 ice-cold Cokes and closed the door. I took one last peek at myself in a mirror over the sink, and with my fingernails, I tried to dig out a few strands of hair, trying to make them wispy-looking so I wouldn't have to look too neat. What I wanted to get was a kind of tousled, I don't care look, so he wouldn't know how long and carefully I had brushed my hair. Oh well, I said in despair to the mirror. If you don't have anything to work with, what can you expect? It looked like I had caught Paul just as he was leaving, and my hope slid into the pits. Oh, are you done for the day? I asked stupidly as he was removing his work gloves. He looked up and smiled so that all of his beautiful teeth showed. There was nothing wrong with his smile, I thought. Oh, how lucky to respond so easily to people. My hand shook as I held out a friendly cold Coke to him. Whew, he said, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. You're an angel. How did you know I was parched? I didn't think I'd make it home. He tilted his head back and took one long drink. I could see his Adam's apple sliding up and down. Come on, Mariah, he said. No one had ever said my name so smoothly. Let's sit around the pool. It's cooler there. His blue eyes peered intently into mine as he spoke. I'd have done anything he said at that point. We took our drinks to the edge of the deep part, and he threw himself down on the cool bricks. I couldn't help but admire his long, slender fingers. An artist's hand, I thought, my imagination running wild. For a few moments there was silence. I panicked. I'd have to say something quick or he would think I was a real jerk. I just think it's great, you and old Jim building a gazebo, I said, my voice shaking, but then gaining in strength. I love gazebos, I went on. I've always loved them. They're found in so many gardens in England. I mean, they're so Victorian. That's true, he said. Actually, though, they go back as far as early Egypt. There are so many designs to choose from, I added, glad that I had done my homework in the Abbott study. I wouldn't mind if he thought I wasn't pretty because I couldn't do anything at all about that, but at least I could be well informed. True, he said again, rising up on one elbow to look at me directly. Old Jim and I went through loads of books before we came across this one. Mr. Abbott agreed this was the best. Then we had to send away for the plans and order the materials. It took us an entire week just to clear the area of plants. He took another long drink. It always amazes me to see what you can do with a pile of wood and some nails and a little paint. Then you want to be a carpenter? No, an architect, he answered, finishing his Coke. His shirt stuck to his back from the heat. That's my dream, he went on, and it's coming closer with each day. September I start at Berkeley. Later on, I hope to finish at MIT. Wow, I said, sounding like my little sister. I finished my Coke too. You really mean it? I mean, that place is expensive. What a dumb thing to say, I thought after the words left my mouth. I know, he said, pretending my question wasn't dumb, but it's a career, a profession, a lifetime. In the field of architecture, you have to get every bit of education you can. That's if you want to be a good one. He stared into the pool, his wrist dangling the empty Coke can in a swirling motion. I got the feeling that this Paul Strobe was as serious about his career as I was about my writing. We sat there on the edge of the water, not talking, just sitting there in the sun together. I felt strangely at ease, relaxed, as though I was sitting with someone I'd known all of my life. Was it the same for him? He looked down at his watch after a few minutes. I've got to get home, he said. My mother is the type who says, "You're late if you're only 30 seconds later than you said you'd be." She's a worrier. All mothers worry, I told him, laughing. And then, as an afterthought, what are the Abbotts like? I mean, they're so terribly rich. Are they nice people? I mean, do you like them yourself? They're fantastic, Paul answered, turning to me, his blue eyes looking straight into mine. I felt my throat grow dry, even after the coldness of the Coke. I've known them all my life, and when they found out I was interested in carpentry, Mr. Abbott introduced me to Jim. That was years ago, when I could barely hold a hammer. Jim actually started me with an old play hammer and some wood scraps he had in the back shed. He taught me everything he knew. Then, when Mr. Abbott found out I wanted to be an architect, he encouraged me, even more than my own dad. Mrs. Abbott is great, too. It's amazing I'm not fat, with all the cooking and baking she does. Here she has all these servants, and she still loves her kitchen. Yeah, they're fantastic. A tiny breeze came up, pushing a strand of hair into my face, and I brushed it away. I'm surprised. I mean, rich people, they're not usually too nice, I told him. My mother teaches in a very ritzy day school, and there are some really rich kids there. My mom says they're spoiled brats, and when their folks come in for interviews, it's disgusting how uppity they are. And me, I know some rich kids from school. I wouldn't give a dime for them. I mean, they're just so, I guess the word is, shallow. Paul stared back into the pool as he put his feet over the side and dunked them. He was silent for a moment. Maybe if you got to know them better, he said finally. Maybe it's kind of your fault too. I mean, you look at them already knowing you're not going to like them. Do you suppose it could be like that? I laughed nervously. Oh, Paul, you're wrong. You just happen to know a few rich people who are nice. But if you knew the ones I've met, I shook my head knowingly. The water looked cool and tempting, and I removed my sandals and dipped my toes in, too. Okay, besides the Abbotts, just who else do you know? I mean, someone who is really, really rich and is just as nice as they are, I challenged him. Paul bent back and looked up at the blue sky. A fluffy white cloud drifted directly above his head. He seemed to be thinking very hard. After a second, I said, "Ha! You see, you can't even think of one." "No, you're wrong," he said, removing his feet from the water. "Did you notice the other house on this street?" "How could I avoid seeing it?" I said. "It's huge, and I bet as fancy as this one. Why?" "I know the people who live there too," Paul said, "especially the guy my age. He's pretty nice." I'd say, "Yes, I can say I really like him. Maybe you'd like to meet him." I shook my head. "No, thank you. I wouldn't want to. Besides, I wouldn't know exactly how to talk to him. Rich people seem to always put on airs. You know, they make me feel terribly small, inferior." He stood up then, and I got to my feet too. "Well, like I said, I've got to get home for dinner." He walked a few feet over to a clump of oleander and pulled out a red and white moped. "I'll be here tomorrow again, Mariah. If you have any free time, maybe you could help me and old Jim. I mean, if you'd care to." He smiled again, that heavenly, wonderful smile. I could feel myself smile, and I wonder if I looked like a nerd. I quickly made my face straight again. "Yes, I really would like that," I told him, trying to hide the emotion I felt in my heart. He waved at me and left the garden area by a gate in the stone wall that I hadn't seen before. I could hear the moped begin its putting noise and then heard it fade away in the distance. I looked up to see the sun easing itself over to the west. It would be a long time until it finally set, and I had met a boy already, someone I could talk to, be really comfortable with. I hoped, oh, how I hoped I hadn't looked stupid or said anything to turn him off. I headed for the house, and I vowed I'd try to set my hair with a little more care that night. I thought of Amy. Amy would just die if I told her about Paul. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 6 Commentary. In Chapter 6, Mariah wants to know more about gazebos, so she utilizes the books from Mr. Abbott's study to arm herself with some information in an attempt to have something in common with Paul in which they can speak to one another. This is smart on Mariah's part. Most people, even adult people, fail to understand that there are social nuances to interacting with a new friend. In particular, trying to find something another person is interested in or has knowledge of so that you have a starting point for conversation is key to starting a new friendship. One thing that is very different in 1981 than today in 2025 is that Mariah cannot just look up information on the internet about gazebos. She has to find books on the premises in Mr. Abbott's library to help her understand something about the structures. Given that most homes were outfitted with an encyclopedia of books, that is most likely where she started her research. Before the internet, encyclopedias were volumes of books separated by letters in the alphabet. For example, one volume would house information on a variety of subjects starting with the letter A. The next book in the set would be dedicated to subjects starting with the letter B, and so on. You can often find encyclopedias in used bookstores quite cheaply. They are fun to read. Thank you for listening to Chapter 6 of P.S. I Love You by author Barbara Conklin, published by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Join me tomorrow as we find out more about the mysterious Paul Strobe.